Hey everybody, it's Wendy. Welcome. I'm so excited to share some of my watercoloring tips with you today, featuring the brand new Floral Statement stamp set. Now, I'm not a watercoloring expert. I've never claimed to be, and that's why I don't show a lot of watercoloring on my channel, because I'm actually kind of a little nervous. I lack a little bit of confidence in this department. So I'm going to use my Misty tool, and I'm going to stamp the awesome sentiment thanks with these beautiful flowers intertwined inside of it, and then we're going to watercolor it. The reason I'm using my Misty tool, which is just a stamp positioning tool, is because I know that these large solid block letters are going to be really hard to get stamped black. And I want them very crisp and very dark. I don't want there to be any missing ink in any of the letters. So I'm going to use my basic black archival ink pad, and it is my favorite ink pad for doing any watercoloring or anything where I need my black ink to be permanent. It is my favorite because it's really inky and it tends to just have a really nice saturation. So you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about here as to why I use my Misty tool. A Misty tool is not sold by Stampin' Up. As you can see, that little letter A there in the center was not dark at all. And I'm going to do this 3 different times, and it's just going to stamp perfectly in the exact same place every time. So it really lends itself to fantastic stamping. So Misty tool is not sold by Stampin' Up. A friend of a friend is the one that created it, and I'm just so excited to own a product that, like, I kind of know somebody who invented the idea. I think that's really cool. I really don't know her at all, my sweet Petunia, personally, but I know somebody who's a really good friend of hers who is a friend of mine. So I always think that's fun when you can, like, have a connection. All right, so these Misty tools are not cheap. They're a little bit pricey, but it's been worth its weight in gold as far as I'm concerned, because I have been able to do some really cool things for my projects that I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. So you can see here the fantastic dark black impression that I have in my watercolor paper. I am using Arches watercolor paper. I'm actually using hot press so that it has a smooth texture. I don't like, well, it depends on what I'm doing, but for something like this, I didn't want a real toothy texture, which just means it has watercolor paper that has a lot of texture to it. Some things I like that, but for this project, I knew I wouldn't, because I wanted those letters to be really crisp and dark. So I knew I would need a little bit of a flatter surface, but I wanted a watercolor paper that would absorb a lot of water. Arches watercolor paper does the trick on that. It's a little bit better than student grade watercolor paper, but it's not your super expensive fancy watercolor paper either. So it's a great watercolor for card making. Okay, this video is sped up super fast because when I recorded this video first, it was 42 minutes long. And I know that my beautiful, wonderful followers love me, but I don't think you love me 42 minutes worth for a card. So I sped this video up a lot, and I'm going to start sharing my watercolor tips with you as I'm watercoloring. Okay, so you see that I'm starting out by going around the outside edges of this stamped image. And I'm doing this first just because if I mess it up, then I can not fret so much about throwing it away, or if I don't want to get rid of it, I can possibly fix it. But it would be really horrible and sad if I painted all the insides of this and took all the time to do that and then messed up on the outside that's not as important, in my opinion. I mean, it's fun and it's important to color this little outside area like I'm doing, but it's certainly not as important as the insides, because my focal point is definitely the flower and the sentiment. So the reason I'm doing this is because it really gives some interest to the image itself once the image is all colored. And it just really is, I don't know, I think it's a necessary step. Okay, so you see here I am starting to use my green, and you saw that I moved my watercolors over to my right side. That's because I was making a fatal watercoloring mistake. I was coloring on, and there I was messing with my iPad. Sorry about that. I was watching Gilmore Girls while I colored. And because again, this video took me 42 minutes to make. So when you see it all sped up like this, it's like, oh, that was really quick. Not so much. So I moved my watercolors over to the right side because I was making a major mistake, which was having my watercolor on the other side of where my water wells were. And the really big tip in this is that if you get pigment on your brush and you're carrying water across your project back and forth, you risk the chance of dripping onto your project, and that would be awful. So I moved my watercolors over, and now I'm coloring all the leaves. When I used, by the way, I'm using Prisma watercolors, and they are the tropical set, and I will link to that over on my blog. So make sure you visit my blog if you want this set. Okay, so I used that green just by itself at first, and I really didn't like it. It looked really yellow, and so I thought I'm gonna have to bring some green in. I'm sorry about my hair being in the video, but I have to get serious when I'm watercoloring, people. Had to get right over this project. So what I did is I've got kind of a blue-green in this same palette. It's a really deep, dark blue-green, and so I brought it in and mixed it with the lemon lime color green. I wanted to make sure that I preserved the tips of these leaves with that light green color. The reason for that is because it gives them more life and makes them look more dimensional. The back parts of the leaves that are tucked under the rose would naturally be darker or shaded because they would be underneath the rose. So I'm taking care to really make sure that I don't go out to the edges on these leaves. So the next step was to color the rose, and so I started out just covering it all with this pink color, which I love, and getting a foundation kind of to work from. Again, the great part of this watercolor paper is that I can build color on top of it. So I didn't have to worry about, oh, if I get it too saturated with water, the paper's going to give up on me. I then mixed some blue with this pink to kind of make a darker purple color, and I started adding that into the areas that were already shaded on the rose. The cool thing about stamp sets that already have shading is they're already indicating to you where the shading would naturally be. So it was really easy to just follow that shading along and not have to wonder if I was shading in the correct place. So I have to tell you, I used to be very intimidated by stamp sets that were already had shading, because I thought, well, what's the point in painting over them? You can't even tell. They've been stamped black and they've got this black shading. But I learned from watching lots and lots of YouTube videos that actually, as you paint over them, it's almost like you don't notice the black shading anymore, and it takes on the color that you're painting. So here you can see I am just continuing to add in that dark color and preserving the tips of the rose petals to provide that highlight. The highlight and the dark is what creates really gorgeous images. So if you can preserve the light area by not going into it with your dark color, then you're going to have more dimension and more depth in your projects. So that was it. I was able to get finished with that watercoloring, which in real life took me a long time. I'm very, very careful when I watercolor, and I have really bad vision. I wear glasses, but my vision is really not great, and so it takes me probably a little longer than it would take most. So there it is, all finished. I'm pretty proud of it, I have to say. I've slowed the video back down to real time now so that you can see me finish out this card, because I have some last tips and tricks that I wanted to show you. I have my basic black cardstock base, and I'm just touching around very gently to make sure that this is all dry. I added dimensional tape to the back of this layered piece, and when I first put it on, I felt like I put it on like offset, crooked, and then I realized it was fine, and so I just left it. I was actually kind of fearful that if I pulled it up it would ruin it, and after that much time making a card, I was not going to worry about if it was a little bit offset. I have some sparkling clear sequins here from Pretty Pink Posh. These are currently my very favorite sequins ever. I completely copied from Laura Basson. She's one of my favorite YouTubers, and she uses these pretty much on every single card she makes. And so I got them, I ordered them, and I love them because they kind of just sparkle and they don't really take on the color that's underneath them very much, which I really like. So I decided where I wanted to place them. I actually struggle with sequin placement. That probably sounds funny, but I kind of do struggle with it. So I had to mess around with what I wanted where, how many of them would I want, what would look too much or too little. And once I got them all organized and decided where I wanted them, then I was able to adhere them down. Now, I think I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this stamp set has the thanks and the hello. It's called Floral Statements, and it is offered through Stampin' Up. I am a Stampin' Up demonstrator, if you are new to my channel and you don't know that. And so if you place an order with me, you get to be one of my VIP customers. I have a VIP exclusive Facebook group. And for this month, you also get a free stamp set called Tranquil Tulips. And you can learn more about that over on my blog if you go look at my blog. So $50 minimum purchase gets you that free stamp set, and there's some other freebies I have going on as well. So make sure you visit my blog to check that out. Okay, so the only thing I ended up not liking about this card is that the A in thanks kind of disappeared in that rose. And I really wasn't sure what to do about it. So I ended up just leaving it alone because I was fearful that if I messed with it, I would ruin my whole card. But one of the ideas that I had was to add some white gel pen around the edges of that A, just to kind of make it stand out. Again, I just wimped out and I didn't do it because after all of this watercoloring, I would be sick if I ended up messing up the whole card by using my gel pen and not doing it well. So kind of one of those things where it's like a risk reward thing, right? If it's not worth the reward or the risk is too great, I just opt out. I won't do it. And you could clearly tell that the word thanks is what is intertwined here in the rose. And I have to say, in person, it's even easier to tell. On the video, it's a little bit, even a little bit darker. So anyway, I wimped out. That's all there is to it. All right, so now I'm taking my Wink of Stella glitter pen and I'm just going over all the leaves and the rosebuds to add that final shimmer. And that's it. That's my whole card. It's finished. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I so enjoyed making this card and I'm pretty stinking proud of it. If you want to watch other videos from me, you can click on either one of them you see here. Click on the little circle that has my face in it to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and give me a thumbs up if you liked this video and you'd like to see more from me. And please leave me a comment. I always love comments as long as they're nice. No nasties. Thank you. Bye-bye.